Hello, my beautiful friends. So today we're going to talk about academic life and what it is really like. I always talk about starting with the end in mind. And so today I'm going to share with you what a career in academia is really like and the sorts of things that you can expect if you are starting a PhD with the expectation of going into a tenure track academic career. There's a lot to cover. Let's get into it. Now, I really quickly want to share with you all of my experience. I think in my other videos, I've kind of alluded to some of the steps that I've been through, but here it is in a nutshell. So I finished my PhD. Great. University of Newcastle in Australia. I actually really liked it. I don't know whether it's like remembering the good times and forgetting the bad times. There were certainly struggles, mainly to do with supervisors. But overall, my primary supervisor was incredible. We didn't necessarily get on personally, but she was able to bring out the best of me as an academic, I think. So just a fantastic experience. Then I was like, I'm fed up with this. So I went into industry. I spent 13 months as an explosives chemist in Dyno Nobel, an explosives company. Then I was like, well, I don't really like this either. So then I went back to do a postdoc at Flinders University in Adelaide. Then after about 3 to 4 years, I applied for my own funding. I got that. So I had 1 year contract where I was an academic. You know, it was my first step on the ladder. I had funding, I had students, I had things, but you know, the funding didn't continue. So then I went back to a postdoc position. And that's what one of my friends very kind of rudely calls scunge money. That's just where people kind of like, well, we like Andy, we'll keep him around, and people pool in their money to kind of keep you around on just weird sort of, I was 0.2 on this project, 0.2 on another project, 0.1 on another project. So it wasn't an ideal case, but it is a reality that if you're getting into the academic career, you may have to spend some time just putting up with whatever people can scrounge together. You kind of come a little bit of a charity case. You do have to make kind of good impressions before you get to the point where people are willing to put in money to keep you around. And they often say, you know, we'll keep you around, but you should be applying for your own funding as well. And then, I ran out of money there. And then another contract came up in another University of South Australia, and I spent, I think, about another 13 or 14 months there on an industry collaboration project, and then I was like, I am done with academia. Look, the research group was amazing. The university was not a friendly, welcoming place at all, and I didn't like the way it was managed. And so the research group was one of the best research groups I had ever been in. And I was just, it was awesome. I had, you know, students which I worked with, I had industry partners. It was a really rewarding environment because of the team that I worked with. And unfortunately, the system, as you know, this is academia in general, didn't really work for me. So then I quit mid-project to become a science communicator. I can talk about that in another video if you want. There's ups and downs and all sorts of issues with that in itself as a career, but that's where I ended up. Started creating my own startup, trying new things, doing a drumming course for schools. I did so many different things, and this is one of them, and I absolutely loved every second of it because I was supported by a very supportive and understanding partner. But there we are. There is my career. I've had the funding, I've lost the funding, and I've left, and I've spent about 12 years in academia as an academic post-PhD. So here I'm going to share with you the 5 things that I think you should be aware of if you are considering a career in academia, because I think some people think that it's about doing research and teaching, and it is those things, but that's actually like a very small part of what you end up doing, because it's just a crazy position. It's a crazy role. And I'm going to share with you the 5 things that I think you should be aware of. The first thing you should notice is that if you allow it, it will take over your entire life. Now, I kind of get it. People get into academia because there's this thing about following what you love, about doing the things you want to do, pursuing the experiments that you want to pursue. Like, there's all of these awesome reasons why I can see that it's kind of a slippery slope for consuming your life. And I think some of the best postdocs and PhD students and academics that I worked with did actually not have a life outside of academia. And I think, I don't know, rightly or wrongly, that was to the benefit of their career because, there's the hustle porn stuff that I really don't like, where it's like outwork your competition. And I think they just did because, first of all, they loved it. And also they loved it so much they weren't doing anything else. And so, yes, academia is a job, but for some people, it's a job and their life. And if you let it take over your life, it will. There are so many things that you can do. You do have to, I think, draw a line in the sand early on and be like, I'm not going to work past this time because I've got family, I've got friends, I need to look after my mental health. And unfortunately, when I was doing my PhDs and postdocs, the academics that I witnessed were so bad at doing that they were essentially bad role models. Sending emails at 3 a.m, going to international conferences and working like on their laptop through the whole conference as if they weren't there. So yes, academia can absorb your life, and it's not necessarily a bad thing because for some people that's what they want to do, and it's a completely personal choice. But if you are a more well-rounded person and you want more from your life than just academia, then you do have to be very careful about setting your boundaries with that job because it will soak it up. The second thing I want to talk about is all of the free work that academics do. Now, academics publish in journals. They publish peer-reviewed articles, which is like original research that they submit. Now, as part of this process, they are peer-reviewed by other people in the field. And essentially, as an academic, you get an email which says, and I still get them now, which essentially just says, hi, we would like for you to review this article. Click here, yes. Click here, no. Or something, there's a few other options, but I'm just clicking no at the moment because I'm not in academia. It'd be wrong for me to do that. But you are expected as an academic to contribute to your field of research beyond the research. And that's like being on committees. That's like reviewing papers. And reviewing papers is such an important part, but you're not paid for it directly. Yes, there's an argument for saying, well, you do get paid as part of your job, and part of your job is to review papers if you're an academic. And someone that I know, he said, I want to review papers because it is part of the academic process, and I completely get that. But it is free. It is something you do have to do, and it does inform your work. So pluses and minuses, but you are expected to review papers, and you can control the flow to them to some extent by accepting some and not accepting others. But generally, when they pop across your email, it's just another task for you to do. Also, boards, committees, and organizing committees. Oh my God. I was fed up with being told this will be good for your CV. And yeah, being on boards, being on review committees, like all of that's super important. But when you've got a stable job, it is a complete distraction for you when you are a PhD student or you're a postdoc or you haven't got that sort of kind of job security. And yeah, it is just another thing, going to meetings and organizing a conference or becoming a guest editor on a journal or all of that sort of stuff just takes up time. So there is a lot of free work and free demands on your time. And another thing is talks, yes, you do have to become an advocate for your own research because essentially no one else will, but you do get flown about pre-COVID to different organizations, different collaborators, different conferences where you just, it's a lot of time. And you don't get time in lieu, like in an industry job, you don't get time back. It's just like expected of you. So there is a lot of time consuming sort of time sinks that will easily mop up all of your free time. And I guess that relates to the first one. And unfortunately, a lot of them just aren't paid either. So yes, that is a reality. The third one that I want to talk about is maybe just for Australia. Let me know in the comments if this is true elsewhere, but they talk about the 40-40-20 split. 40% research, 40% teaching, and 20% admin. And they talk about that as a balanced academic role. And recently, universities have split off into, teaching focus, research focus, industry focus. There's all these different splinters just because they realize it's a massive job. But back probably when I was at the last postdoc, they were talking about these balanced roles. So these balanced roles where you do the research, the teaching, and the admin. And in reality, look, they say 40-40-20, but in reality, it is nowhere near that. It's like 80% research, 80% teaching, and probably like 100% admin. The amount of admin these people do for the university, for the department, for their field, for whatever papers or journals they're part of, collaborators, like all of these things, all of the admin stuff, they're meant to contribute to the academic sort of like life and running of the university. Oh, it was insane. I was just amazed at how much my supervisors used to do in just admin. And it was meant to be a very small part, but it just soaks up. I mean, you know what paperwork's like. It will fill, it's like a gas. It will fill the volume you give it, not a problem. So, that's admin. And that is, a balanced academic role. And I know that you can get teaching focused, research focused now. And I really wanted a teaching focused role when I was still in academia because I love this. I love speaking to people. I love teaching. I felt like I was good at it. And it just never really worked out for me because I think it just wasn't trendy. And also teaching, this is another thing, little bonus one, teaching is like considered a punishment, right? If you don't get your own funding, at least in Australia, if you don't get your own funding, you're given more teaching. And so how are you meant to be getting more grants by writing grants if you're spending more time teaching? And I did see a few academics go into this like death spiral of teaching only, and they may have enjoyed it, they may have not, but they were teaching only, more teaching. Teaching comes with organizing courses, 200, 300 students at a time, just trying to organize them, dealing with their issues, and then expected to reboost their research careers from that. And I've seen, like I said, this death spiral where once they start in that teaching role, they just kind of get sucked into it and they never bump up their research side ever again. And it can be seen as a bit of a punishment in the academic world if you're teaching a load because you haven't got your own money. The fourth thing I would say is that grants rule your life. Now, the thing about these grants are they are a little bit political. You have to be in a trendy part of the academic world and research world. So solar technology was pretty trendy when I was going through. Nanotechnology was another thing that I was part of that I would inject in to try to feel trendy and like on top of things. It's true, I was doing all those things, but you do have to appeal to what's trendy at the time, and an academic will spend 3 or 4 months a year writing grants, and it's just insane. So remember I said this kind of like 40-40-20 split? Well, that's kind of doesn't include necessarily the amount of time it takes to apply for funding. These grant applications are sometimes massive. You need to do a part on you, why you as a researcher should get the money, a part on the project, and part of like all of the finances, all of the reasons why it's significant, what it will benefit Australia. There's the Australian research priorities. So you would say, well, we're dealing with sustainable energy or renewable energy. That's a research priority. That changes based on the politicians that are in and what's trendy at the time. So it is an absolute lottery. As far as I could tell, that essentially you just had to apply for grants until you got one. And you can get good at writing grants and you can copy and paste from some grants into others, but it is a little bit of a lottery. So essentially keep applying until you get one. And that's what I saw higher up academics. They would have collaborations, they would be on 5 or 6 grants, maybe one of them would come off and that would be their funding for a bit. But as an as a new researcher, you just have to sit there and write grants and apply. And, they do reject grants based on the fact that they're kind of, they're just not well written. So you do have to really be rigorous, not only in the science, but in how well they're presented. And that's really tough. I also want to say that grants have in Australia a success rate of about 10%. That's insane. So that's a 10% success rate if you're in a trendy part of the scientific world, if your grant is actually good, your grant application is well written, and also like a massive amount of luck. So yeah, you spend all this time writing grants as an academic, and it's just a part of your life. And the fifth thing that I want to talk about, and this is in Australia, but I'm sure there's other things elsewhere, is the academic pay scale. So you have academic level A through to E. And so you start on level A, that's where I was. And look, the pay isn't too bad, especially coming from like a PhD. If you get a postdoc position, you can start on about 60 to 75,000 Australian dollars a year. That's what I was on, 75. And it just sort of like goes up from there. But to go from level A to level B, you need to be promoted into that position. Now, here's the thing about academic jobs is you need to be acting in that higher position for like 2 years before they'll give you the promotion, which is just insane. So all of these academics, when they were coming up for promotion, would have to demonstrate the 2 years previously of how they had been acting as a level E or level D or whatever they were going for, the next level up. And that's just, I think, exploitation. I'm not sure. It's not very often that you have to work for 2 years at a higher level at a reduced pay for the chance of being given to apply for that next level. And it's very political, sure, I don't know how else you would do it to prove yourself, but the promotion scale does dictate how much money you make, at least in Australia, and very few people make it to level D and E. You have to be around for a very long time. You have to bring in a lot of grant money. You have to push through a lot of papers. You have to get through a lot of students, and you have to collaborate internationally, and it's a very tough place to end up. And I was looking at some pay scales online, and it can be anywhere from $250,000 Australian dollars to as low as about 180,000 Australian dollars. So when you compare that to the stress and the life-absorbing nature, it's not a significant amount of money. It's not life-changing necessarily. It is a good wage, but this promotion scale and people coming up for promotions, it is such a political and exciting thing that people look forward to, putting in their paperwork to get more money. And it's just a fact, these universities have created these pay scales, and you can Google them. Just type in pay scale or enterprise bargaining agreement in Australia and then the university, and you'll see the academic pay scales. And it's probably not as much as you are thinking it could be. So there we have it. That's everything I think you need to know about academic life. Now, I've shared my experience, and of course I am one data point, but it is something that I've seen across multiple institutions, multiple universities, as I've jumped around doing different postdocs and different things and looked at different supervisors and worked under different supervisors, and it is a crazy, crazy world. I often focus on some of the least advantageous things about these careers, but I want to give a realistic representation of what academic life is really about, and sometimes that is the not so pretty things. But let's not forget that if you're choosing a career in academia, it's probably because you like finding out new things, and are you willing to sacrifice some aspects of your life to be able to pursue these? They talk about being able to pursue whatever you want, and that's true if you're in a trendy area, but if not, you kind of have to mold your research to work out where the funding is and how you get that funding. So yes, there's parts of it that are freeing, but there's a lot of other stuff that I think people don't necessarily talk about. And this video isn't to put you off, it's just about to inform you about the realities of academia and what I've witnessed. Let me know in the comments what you would add to that list and things you've seen, and let's give a real representation of what a life and a career in academia is really like. There are some amazing components, there's no doubt. International travel, collaborating with people, expanding your mind, being at the forefront of a field, that's all really awesome. But there are some other not so great things. Let's share them down below, and let's give a holistic view. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe and hit that bell notification. I would love that. It helps grow the channel, it helps you, it helps me reach a wider audience, and yes, it would be much appreciated. Until next time, I shall see you in the next video.